Oh, sure. First of all, it's a great question. And both of those things can be true. Teams can't hit the breaking point, and the white glove service. The true core of our nature is that hands-on approach. And I was a manager for the entire department, so first, second, third shift. And I did really notice that at this particular organization, um, second and third shift are kind of cast off, right? Data is power, intelligence is power. It's on my teams, I have a great wide variety of folks with different levels of experience in logistics, sales, operations, all those things. And so you get into a room, you get on a call with people.
If somebody has your back, things go smoothly. And if you know that they have your back, things go smoothly. If your client has your back, things go smoothly. If you have your client's back, things go smoothly. But I think you've basically already covered that with saying that you just try your best. They know what they're going to encounter because they're cops, but each day is different. So you expect your partners and your teammates to have your back in certain areas, in and out of the office. And I think that you kind of summarize that nicely here. And then just hoping that your clients have your back from time to time as well to make.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be diving into the world of logistics orchestration, specifically how to scale a hyper-responsive, high-touch 3PL, third-party logistics, in an industry known for brutal cycles and tightening margins. Logistics on unparalleled white glove standard of service. Mike, thanks so much for joining today.
Andrew, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And looking forward to talking about all things, as you just mentioned. And it's great to interact with you and your audience today. This is fun.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to diving right in. So I want to jump in into what we call the kind of high touch paradox.
Sure.
I know that ease is known for its responsiveness. You guys offer true 24/7, 365 availability. How do you maintain that absolute white glove service without your internal team just absolutely hitting the breaking point?
Oh, sure. First of all, it's a great question. And both of those things can be true. Teams can hit the breaking point, and the white glove service. The true core of our nature is that hands-on approach. Before I started at Ease about 5 years ago, I was actually a customer of Ease, believe it or not, on a manufacturing e-commerce side. So COVID hit, we were in the manufacturing field on fitness equipment specifically, and started turning on new vendors left and right to meet the demands for our business. And so I had known Ease. I have friends that had worked here for a while, and the responsiveness was just something that was like, a sight to be seen. And truly, as a logistician, somebody who's been in operations for going on 20 years now, it made sense to, kind of want to emulate that or try to be a part of that. And so, from our team and from where I sit, I kind of touch all areas, including, leading sales, having been on the operations side, started up new products, working with our account managers, bringing on new customers. And it's something that when I go into a meeting with, a vice president of logistics or a manager of distribution or a logistics minded person trying to find out why they should work with Ease, this question comes up a lot, and it really surrounds, we stand behind our word as far as, if you want a quote and a response in 2 minutes, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to have a really well fleshed out, rounded quote for transportation in 15, just from like a spot sense of things. Um, I can sit here and not lie to you and say that, I answer emails all hours of the night. The president of the company does. The standard is the standard. And it's true. There's a lot of people that you have to get a lot of buy-in. And some days it is tough. Customers demanding, but, I think we just kind of talked about pre-show. If someone else, if you're not answering the phone or the email, like someone else is going to. Um, Competing on price is one thing, right? Anybody can get a truck, anybody can provide, an order update. Um, but having someone back behind those philosophies and really truly meaning what you said when you sold an opportunity is, I will be there. I'll be the person to talk to you. I'll have the account manager, the person to make you feel good about doing business with us. It is something that you truly have to believe. And there are days when it gets really hard because, in our business, it is an operation. It is a mindset that requires to be on. Now, what Ease has done really well in scaling, as you just mentioned, is truly manage to find people that fit the profile, that want to be successful like that want to truly stand behind their word, but also integrated great things that, you know, a lot of people can say, but we've been able to execute on. And it's, it is having the right people, it is having the correct people on off shifts. I came from a second and third shift operation when I first was getting started. It's not glamorous, but if you can find a way to become a rock star and be the person that the customer can depend on, you can take that places. You can get some trajectory out of it. But for us as an organization, it's truly become just a way of life, a mantra of we do what we say we will do. The team that is responsible for those after hours calls, like there's some unsung heroes that were unseen to a degree. It's just kind of a very thankless, but we try to reward and embellish those activities where, it is your job, but also we recognize that it is not easy. We do deploy some folks that help with assist with track and trace, like to kind of reduce some of the manual touch points. Like they may be feeding information to an operations manager of like all the loads that need checked or the loads that need called on, or the customers that need reached out to. We have built some tools in house that really help augment and support our teams, where that person who is, your operations manager, your night supervisor, your second and third shift personnel, that they've got a lot going on. They're tending to the hundreds of customers we work with and the hundreds of shipments that might be on the board at any given time, or the random email that may come across at 3 in the morning needing a pickup at 5:30. uh, they're the ones that are going to get that job done for us. And so we try to incentivize that, where the people on those shifts are empowered to make decisions, empowered to act on behalf of the company, and also have the tools to support them where they can act as efficiently as possible and as rapidly as you would expect if someone was at 10 a.m. on a weekday.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it touches on something that I look at closely and often is the distinct line between strategic relationship management and kind of the transactional execution of the role that they're bringing you on to do. My take is that uh, many 3PLs struggle to grow because their best people, their high level brokers and relationship managers, are stuck doing that 2 a.m. tracking. How do you draw that line at ease to protect your people's time?
Sure. And you have a couple of different things that come into play there, and I'll reference a instance that I remember in a different light, and it kind of gives credence to what we do. And it was it was a little bit different. So there was a time at a job that I had previously where we had just started the third shift. This is on an operations side, and I was the manager for the entire department. So first, second, third shift. And I did really notice that at this particular organization, um, second and third shift were kind of cast off, right? So I remember talking with my manager at the time, was the second in command of the company, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to work overnights a couple of days this week." And I got a lot of pushback and feedback that was like, "Why would you do that?" And I said, "Well, I've got teams on these shifts and I need to understand what they're going through." Very consultative in the approaches to make sure they got the support they needed, because if not, my team was coming in at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and trying to understand like what had happened the night before and trying to triage it and also move the day's business ahead of time. So by really allowing our team that are on the off shift hours to have good interactions with, kind of like the core hour personnel, they're permitted to make calls. They're permitted to make quotes. They're permitted to execute and not have to run things up the chain. We try to find and work with high level personnel, high capacity individuals that get it and understand they're empowered. And we'd rather have somebody make a decision. It can be wrong, but you made a decision. We learn from the mistake, or we learn from, hey, that was an okay decision. Here's a better one. We really try to find out that we take advice. We take feedback from those departments and understand, hey, this is really an issue. Like, and there are things that are known, right? There's always going to be, if somebody calls off for a midnight shift, it's always darn near impossible to find a replacement. And so, it's like, hey, get done what you can get done today. Recognize that there's going to be a whole smorgasbord of things left over in the morning, and it's not a blame game. It's truly, a unique situation where people understand where the deficiencies are, where we can gain efficiency through either tools or other integrations of personnel, infusions of talent, whatever it is. Also rewarding those that actually do the work and let them know that their job's not thankless. It does. You mentioned the relationship piece. It is having a relationship with all personnel across all shifts, where the first shift folks and the day account managers, or the day support personnel, are they're the, yeah, hey, do they control 80% of the things that go on? Sure. But that one time, there's something in that 20% that can cause a problem. You know, some of our primary customers have freight traveling all throughout the night, and they require visibility because there's impacts if that freight doesn't deliver, whether it's a automotive OEM and their line goes down. The repercussions are damaging to years and years and years of relationship building if we don't meet on those deliverables. So when you empower people to make decisions, use the tech that they have, use their resources effectively, and also be able to make calls, you can make some things happen. You can make some magic where you might not have found it previously. So I really think that, you know, blending the right personnel and leveling expectations that, we know there may be some deficiencies here, being honest, but also working to improve them and working to empower the people that are tasked with making the decisions or executing on the requirements. We found we're able to win, and our customers see that. We do say we'll take a quote 24/7. We get graded on how many quotes we submit back based on opportunity. That's across all shifts. So there is incentives behind that. Hey, if you're quoting and winning freight at 2 in the morning or on the weekend, you're absolutely going to be rewarded for it. So there is some incentivization behind it, but it's also, again, allowing people to have conscious thought and make decisions and be empowered to do so.
I think it comes down to almost a percentage game where if you're willing to do it every time and someone's not, and someone loses one order, that's a relationship that could be damaged for a very long time.
Yeah,
So
the relationship is key, and it's also a relationship internally. Where everybody has that ownership piece. You can control your destiny. You could. Someone wants to work a weekend and claim all the weekend freight. You can make a really good book of business just by extrapolating on the opportunities that are right in front of you when other people aren't willing to pick up the phone or answer an email.
yeah, totally. Well, let's pivot over to the technology portion.
Sure.
So right now, every conference and boardroom is chasing AI and automation, predictive visibility platforms. But on the ground, the logistics data from legacy VOL formats to carrier check-ins is incredibly messy and fragmented. How are you guys approaching a digital transformation without just automating potentially an existing mess?
Sure. It's a great question. You're absolutely right. It's very prescient. Everybody you're talking to, it's on every other
Sure.
news story, podcast. I think even read the other day that there's this conscientious rebellion against AI where people are, really seeing that, it's kind of a reckoning, right? Like there's people that have, made their living on getting by, right? It's just I'm kind of an expert in my field, but there's somebody that thinks faster, acts faster. You're starting to see folks that just, holy crap, I'm really kind of being challenged by what's possible. And again, the anybody who's been in data or analysis for any amount of time, data in it's garbage is going to translate to something that's garbage out. Um, you can prompt all the AI you want, but if it's the wrong prompts, if you're not sense checking it, I think every day there's a story, or every week, or something you'll see on social media where lawyers are citing their incorrect case law because they ran it into chat GPT, or you have some contract that got messed up or burgled somehow, or just completely false and fabricated things because you're just trusting a machine because you don't choose to do the actual legwork. And so one thing I would say, where ease is definitely leveraging a desire to lead and be innovative. We do have that in our nature, it's in our DNA. We're taking a lot of things in house. So everybody right now who's selling software as a platform or as a service has the next great AI thing. We've taken a really deliberate approach, and if I was able to have our president Peter on with you, he's got a great manifesto behind his approach and what we're all kind of working towards. And it is something where is again, we are not CH Robinson, we are not TQL. They're great at what they do. We are different in our own regard, and we leverage our data the way that others may not. And that includes a lot of internalization. We know we buy better, for example, in certain regions of the country better than the standard spot rates or whatever you're seeing on the different rating platforms, DAT or freight waves or whatever what have you. Um, and we're incorporating that into like our expertise for our customers. We know that we can speak to XYZ effectively because we are using that data, leveraging it in a manner that says we have historical definition to do so. So one thing that we are kind of working on right now, it is a internal tool. It is called AMMI, AMMI. It is great. it leverages and pulls. It's all inward facing, so it's not like out tapping into Chat GPT. It's not tapping into Claude or the various platforms. So what it does is it's grabbing. I can talk to it just like an agentic AI. Get me a rate quote for XYZ. Columbus to Cincinnati, whatever. Give me a lane. Give me a commodity. Give me an equipment type, and it's going to do that. And it's going to be relatively confident because we've bought at that level before, or otherwise we've executed at those pricing parameters. It is a program that we are looking to make outward facing. So everybody talks right now. Well, can I get in a portal? Can I have XYZ? Without giving away too much, kind of the secret sauce there behind that. It is something that we're rolling out to customers that are piloting it. So if a purchasing agent has 10 trucks coming from supplier A to their manufacturing location, they can see everything kind of instantaneously, transparently. They can do it at their own leisure. They don't need to they can cut off the human interaction. They can be efficient, or they can still always reach out to an account manager. And so what we've really tried to establish is that we're not looking to replace employees or good hardworking people with agentic AI, machine learning. We're trying to augment and make them more efficient. And a lot of our processes, like you mentioned, the first kind of the question was like very hands-on. So when we talk about if I can reduce a bunch of manual touch points with a systematic, piece of information that is clean, clear, looks great, tells the customer, tells the client, tells the trucker everything they need to know, then we're gonna use that, and that allows that high level thinking or that strategic thinking from an account manager level, from an operations level, from a high end level, however you want to look at it. The less you're doing in the weeds, but you're still providing the correct information and the things that people need to know at a timely cadence, you're gonna win. Um, to your point, there's so many data sources. There's so many things that are out there. People are trying to sell you stuff that, who knows where it's coming from. And that's why we've decided to look inwards, because we know what we've built, we know what we've got going on. We trust our data. We have, a team full of data engineers that scrub and scrub and scrub and review and do all the different things they do. I can't even speak to the amount of work that they have on their plate because of how we're leaning into this. So, but it's meant to be internal. It's deliberate. It's meant to be who we are and not packaging something together that's built by somebody else. We want to own it and we want to be able to speak to it and otherwise have a great tool that we use internally at the very least, make our team super efficient, and also provide our clients and customers with the data and things they need to make educated decisions, or, use it to leverage insight that they may not have had before.
Totally. Yep. Couldn't agree more. We've all seen, a million at this point tech first failures in the marketplace because of these companies assuming that the software fixes a broken process. Not exactly related, but I saw one that was funny recently. It was a textbook, like a university textbook, where they left the Chat GPT prompt in the textbook. So, I'm a big advocate for using technology to make a person's life easier, but it's hard to replace the person in the process, and then using the tool for your benefit to make sure that everybody's time is better spent and the accuracy is higher.
1000%. Data is power. Intelligence is power. It's on my teams. I have a great wide variety of folks with different levels of experience in logistics, sales, operations, all those things. And so you get into a room, you get on a call with people. They anybody who's been in a purchasing position before, or a procurement position, like they know pretty quickly. They get calls hundreds of times a day from people like these. And if you're lucky enough to get somebody on the phone, they're going to tell you right away. You're going to know right away whether they're reading off a Chat GPT script or if they're really about their business. And, it's funny because, hey, they got you on the phone, but you'll never hear from them again. And don't bother calling you. You get one shot to really know what you're talking about. Now, granted, there are some great tools. We use some AI platforms external platforms to really, I grade sales calls, right? We take and look at transcripts and things and do talking points. And it's, we're always testing to kind of like see where our deficiencies are. But that's part of the deal, is using those tools to help augment. I can't sit on every call. I can't be on every meeting, but we want to know and make sure that we're streamlined in what we're trying to sell when we get in that position, and also what we're talking about, to make sure the customer clients view us as experts and not just somebody dialing. I think there's a differentiated approach to. Granted, sales is tough, freight is tough, calling thousands of times a day or thousands of times a week to get one maybe and a bunch of no's. Yes. But being able to talk to your actual prospect or your customer, your client with an air of confidence because you are empowered by what you know. And granted, AI doesn't know everything. AI pulls some crazy things. And if you read off a script, the hallucinations would be great. But when you can get the technology to support you and for
Yep.
coaching, I think it's a great tool. And I think it's a wise investment for anybody to make, even if just in themselves, learn how to use Claude or learn how to use ChatGPT or Gemini, Perplexity, pick your favorite platform to just get better at what you do. You can accelerate your own learning. We're even starting to see now, and we're tailoring our approach to how we interact with potential prospects and clients. A lot of it is it's search engines. Google's not number one anymore. We are getting thrown into the wash for, every client I get on the phone, if they found us or they decided to, I was like, well, what do you know about us? Like, we got this through you on ChatGPT, or we got about this through you through Perplexity, and you guys popped up. So the whole way of the world is shifting in how companies are discovered, how brands are discovered, and how people are empowering themselves. And I think, if you're not right now, you're really doing yourself a disadvantage. I'm going to be 44 this fall, and I think it's the best time to be alive. I think it's incredible that the things we can do that may have taken months before, you can do them in days and weeks, and really build stuff for yourself, your organization, your knowledge. It's tremendous. It would empower anybody if they really choose to put their mind to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it certainly is opening up a whole new can of worms of what's, you touched on self-learning. I think that kind of nails it. And I could go off on a completely different tangent on self-learning with AI platforms, but the summary that you gave of kind of how you blend, but bridging it to the people portion of it, the freight market cycle, notoriously volatile, boom or bust, that is kind of genuinely flex ready, so that you're not trapped in that brutal kind of heartbreaking cycle of hiring like crazy during peaks and then firing during downturns.
Yeah, we're not immune to the cycles, right? Everybody can plan and plan and plan. And, there's, again, people are very interested hit with layoffs all the time. Thankfully, it's been relatively smooth sailing here, no pun intended, for the most part. But at the same time, too, anybody can become leveraged in an instant. And, I will say that, to kind of start that, the answer there, like, the fortune does favor the bold for the most part, when, ease is constantly invested in itself, whether it be resources or new products or, again, my tenure here started to help build and establish a warehousing product. I turned 5 here this November, and when I was lucky enough to be brought on board, they had a customer in hand. It was a distribution customer that they'd never done before, and they needed someone to run it. So, been around a time or two, knew enough about operational processes to kind of get things up and going with some of the staff here and kind of like help to bring them up to speed. It was bold, so that turned into, not really saying no, figuring out a way. And that kind of speaks to really that elasticity of our people. We don't say no a lot, sometimes to our detriment. I think anybody could say that we've all bitten off more than we could chew at any given time. But, in the pool of people, we want people that want to learn, are eager, and also, we find ways to empower everybody. It kind of goes back to the first question we were talking about. So, really good things. When we start to feel it operationally, and there's additional coverage. We bend and flex, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If there's really, all of our clients are important. If they move one shipment or 1,000, obviously there comes operational challenges with the latter. We're constantly evaluating how we operate, whether it's adding new account managers, adding new vertical pods, adding, the sales team picking up less volume heavy customers to just be there to kind of like fulfill our promise to them that we will quote anything and everything they're looking for. And to really, really, really measure that, we look at kind of like our loss rate. We look at where customers quit working with us, or customers, kind of fall silent for a little while.
Yeah.
And we've had customers tell us, and this is, again, being transparent and honest with ourselves as an organization, like, try hard enough to win opportunities. And so that kind of like triggers some additional inward facing reflection on, do we need to work with these people because of X, or is it really worth kind of reinvigorating a relationship? The answer is always going to tend to focus on, yep, they liked us once before. we kind of missed our end of the bargain here. Let's get back in their good graces and go from there. And ultimately, you're going to have some customers too that, and this may be counterintuitive. Some customers aren't going to be that great, and maybe I don't know anybody on the shipping side that wants to hear this. So not all brokers are great, not all customers are great, and you want to marry up the ones that want to work with you and create that partnership that really leads to making a volatile freight cycle less volatile for both the shipper and the broker or the team. They bring up a really great example here with I'm not going to leverage any names, but you start to see in a cycle like this, like right now, I know you're in tune with kind of what's going on in the market here in the U.S., but DOT week is traditionally a very, very volatile week. The Department of Transportation has a plan. It's a blitz to catch all the vehicles that are running out of service or have service failures. If your tire treads off, if your license plate lights out, it's just like you're driving on the highway on a holiday weekend. State troopers are out. They're going to look to get you for anything just because they've given you all this time to fix it, and now it's like, okay, you've really been trying to skate by. And so, we work with as many dedicated carrier partners as we can, and sometimes we need to have partners that are available for us in kind of a pinch and a spot moment. Last week, you're seeing rates for some of your traditional lanes 10 to 30% higher. Carriers naming their own price. We buy well, right? But there's something that even we're having trouble with. And any of the big brokers will do the same thing. And you really go back to your customer, and the customers that are good and appreciate what you're doing will help you ride through the volatility. They're in it to get the best price and best deal that they can, but also what good are they if they don't take care of the people helping them meet their goals? So that's where relationships comes into play, and where you can really find smoother sailing during volatile times. As for the folks, doing the hard work, it becomes any type of morale boost you can get. It's, maybe it's the customers willing to help you out on a load you took that last week it was $2,000 and this week they want $5,000, and no one's winning. The truckers are winning. The truckers deserve to win. Truckers need to be paid well and paid fairly for the work that they do. And I think right now, kind of getting to this volatile cycle, you're seeing some elasticity on what was good 6 months ago is no longer the things are changing very rapidly. So as far as maintaining the folks and talent, they get that talent kind of trickles down into the right customer and the right carrier marriage, which is what we're supposed to do. As far as keeping people, kind of flex ready, what we do is we do a lot of we have our tools, right? Every strand of the tools, really standard SOPs. We're SOP heavy. It's see a process, have a process, update the process when necessary, but ultimately follow the process. And what that does for our teams is, we always say, if I happen to win the lottery, right, and I can manage freight for a fun thing, and I don't have to work for a living, and I can sit on the Bahamas and I can do whatever I want to do, I'm going to feel confident enough that my team can execute. If I'm on the other side of the world, building out the SOPs where people got to take a day off, they've got to be out of the office. They know that their account's going to be covered because someone is going to step up behind them. They're their backup. They're their buddy. They are their person that handles their account. They have just as much intimate knowledge as the person who owns the account. And it's going to be like nothing ever changed. You may see a different reply name on an email, but the customer doesn't experience a difference. And so there's peace of mind there with, an account manager that says, hey, my accounts are going to be taken care of. I got to take care of my family, my dog, a pet, my kids are in school, a recital went late, whatever that is. It's not saying it's not hard, but you trust in the process. Again, heavy SOP centric from day one. You're talking 3-4 weeks of training from someone who's been in the industry for 10 years to someone who's been in it 10 days. That's the East Standard. Easy University is a great tool that we use for our people that really helps build that elasticity in our teams to make sure that everyone's prepared. Maybe not for everything. In this field, there's something new that can happen any given day, right? But they're going to be able to cover most of it. And 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times, 10 times out of 10, there's going to be a person in the organization that can get them an answer, help solve a problem, take care of a customer in a way that maybe was not thought out or presented or otherwise known. And again, that's how we try to attack those situations, with making sure our team's prepared. Fortune favors the bold. Figure it out and support the team to make sure the job gets done appropriately.
Makes sense. Yeah, you mentioned something that came up a couple of times in different contexts about the idea of kind of partnerships. where you originally set out when you're talking to clients, and you say there are bad clients and there are good clients, and obviously the responsibility is on both. Your job is to complete the job. Their job is to make sure that you can complete the job, and if they do that easily for you, they're good clients, and if you do it easily for them, it makes you a good service provider. But I think that also extends, and you mentioned it as well, in a different context, but similarly enough, that internally, if your company is a partner with your employees, and they have your back, whether that's another employee or whoever, if somebody has your back, things go smoothly. And if you know that they have your back, things go smoothly. If your client has your back, things go smoothly. If you have your client's back, things go smoothly. So I was gonna ask a little bit more about how you guys work as a consultative partner, macroeconomic problems, and solving these macroeconomic problems for your clients. But I think you've basically already covered that, of saying that you just try your best. They know what they're going to encounter because they're cops, but each day is different. So you expect your partners and your teammates to have your back in certain areas, in and out of the office. And I think that you kind of summarize that nicely. And then just hoping that your clients have your back from time to time as well, to make everything easier for everybody.
Yeah, and there's definitely going to be times where no one wants to beg and grovel, but sometimes you have to do a little bit of that too. And it's hey customer, I'm not bringing this up to you to be a whiny squeaky wheel, but ultimately, here's what we're seeing. This is we don't want to give back your freight. So one thing that has made, I think, us successful is that we it's not even a word, we stick to our word. So if we are awarded freight or opportunities that require us to do XYZ at X rate, we're going to meet those obligations. We don't give back freight. We really don't. Sometimes to our detriment, and also sometimes to our benefit, because the customers then say, hey, you really mean what you said, right? We were going through a tough time, and you guys held the line with a tough time, and then now we're going to reward you. It's like you really meant what you said. And there's something to that, and that's where that partnership comes into effect. We've got some really cool, if I had you in the conference room, we've got some really cool awards and some really cool comments from some, customers you've heard of, people that touch the things you use every single day, whether it be, where you're at or, where I'm at. And those things are important, and people don't necessarily realize like how it all kind of transpires. And so to play a small role in that, just because, we said yes, or we held up our end of the bargain and we're true to our word, that I think that's rare from an organization. I think a lot of people like to say that, we will do X, Y, Z. Whether it's like a lifetime warranty on a product, or it's, but then you have like the fine print, right? Like, oh, we'll replace this under X conditions, but if you did A, B, C, D, E, it's null and void type thing. And one thing that, again, as a former customer, my current organization, I can say that I've seen it in action. I'm not here it's not a sales pitch. It's nothing like that. It's just, sometimes you're able to be noble in your cause, whether it's because, you just want to do right, or you want to be able to, say that I can sleep good at night because, I held up my end of the bargain to my customer. It may stink right now in the short term because maybe I took a really big loss on a piece of freight that I moved, but they're going to come back to me for the next time, and maybe that turns into something greater, or I've gained their trust. That is our mission, is to earn our customers' trust. And I think that focuses internally too. We want people to feel trusted, empowered as an organization. And I'm confident in saying that because I've seen it firsthand. I've lived it. I expect the same from my team that I work with. We send out handwritten thank you cards because we want our customers to know you're going to get it when we are in sales meeting. You're going to talk to a person. You can call me 2:30 in the morning. It may take two, 3 times, but I'm going to answer. And you're going to talk to me, and when we're going to talk about problems we see, we're going to consult on what we're seeing. Are you guys seeing the same thing? Great, let's have a discussion about it. Are some people going to take that a little bit the other opposite end and hang up the phone on you and quit working with you? Sure, there's always going to be those types of opportunities, but maybe they weren't the right person to work with in the first place. And that's a hard way to learn the lesson, but also one of the ways where you're able to find out how good your relationship is and how solid it is.